Hello everybody, welcome back. This is part 2. If you didn't see part 1, please go see part 1, because this might not make any sense if you didn't see part 1. Now we're going to go into sort of the limitations of generative AI and sort of the social impact on humans. And the regular impact on humans, not just social. So, we've already talked about hallucinations, and hallucinations are just the AI doing what we asked it to do, and because it only cares about its language model, not facts, it makes stuff up. And yeah, so you shouldn't use ChatGPT for things you can't verify yourself or that need to be verified that are important. Like, don't use ChatGPT to generate case law because it'll just make things up and then give that case law to a judge. And then I hope this person got fired because, like, it was not great. Don't do stuff like that. But also don't use ChatGPT to give users refund information and then not honor those refunds, because that also didn't work out well for Air Canada. The next main limitation I'm going to talk about is the vocabulary, which might be surprising if you watched part 1, because the vocabulary is the thing that lets the AI do anything at all. Without the vocabulary, we can't turn words into numbers, and I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do with my parameters if all I have is words. So these vocabularies are actually about 50,000 to 500,000 tokens. And that's why I kept saying tokens instead of words before, is because I have like academic brain and I forget that most people won't know what a token is. But these are the things with the parameters associated with them. So the things the AI can learn a distinct information about. And these AIs, the number of tokens in them really doesn't change. The AI can't decide to update its vocabulary. A human has to do that. And I ask you, if these things are AGI, why can't they decide to learn new words or forget them? I don't know. I feel like if I was smarter than every human on the planet and able to take over the world, I could teach myself a new word. Anyways, but the tokens can represent any word as a combination of tokens. And that's kind of a mouthful, so I'll actually just walk you through what that means. So we're going to create a very basic vocabulary. We're going to start with every letter as the start of a sentence and every letter as not the start of a sentence. This is English language. We're just looking at letters right now. Really, you'd have to add punctuation and stuff, but that's too complicated for right now. So now we have everything on the left here, A to Z. That's the start of a sentence. And dash A to dash Z, that would be something in the middle of a sentence. So you start with that, and then you use a corpus. Corpuses are so important and usually created by humans in some way, either automatically like books or by hand, like we saw with Spam Detector GPT, to expand the vocabulary using something called byte pair encoding. Some people are like, yay, byte pair encoding, I love that thing. And other people are like, I hate byte pair encoding. Why have you cursed me? And we'll see later why. So a very simple corpus. It has one sentence in it. She sells seashells. And we tokenize the corpus. So we've represented every word in the sentence as a combination of tokens. Yay, we did it. And we can do this for every word, right? So that way we can represent every word in the vocabulary. That's why you start with letters. The next step is to compute statistics about token pairs. So look at all the pairs of tokens, and you break off the pairing around spaces, and then you get these statistics. And you'll note that S-H is different than -S-H, which is itself a tongue twister, because one has a start of word token in it, and one has a middle of word token at the start. So to expand your vocabulary, you take the most common pair and you smush it together into its own token. You don't delete the original tokens, but you add the new token to the vocabulary. So now we have these 26 times 2 plus 1 tokens in our vocabulary. And now that you have this new token, you have to recompute the statistics after you retokenize the corpus. And we get rid of the statistics that are 0, and now we have these new statistics. And then you do it again. And you do it again. And again. And again. And again. And again. And again. And eventually you'll have 2 times the number of starting tokens plus the number of repetitions tokens. And because we could represent any word at the start, we can represent any word with our new vocabulary. Hey! So we've got a bunch of tokens with a bunch of representations, and we can represent any word in our new vocabulary. And you notice some of the words might be tokens too. It'll be great, right? This is great. Well, think about it. Is it great? Here's an AI that I've seen that I'm using for like examples in my research. It is trained to predict the gender of a person described in a biography. And it looked at this biography for someone called Mr. Hodge and predicted that their gender is woman. There's 2 reasons for this. And the first one might be obvious to you. You can see that the name of the person that wrote the biography is at the end of the sentence. So the word Melanie is in the sentence or in sort of the paragraph. So that's probably having an effect on the decision. But there's one other thing, and I'm going to give you time to where's Waldo it. Not very long, you're in a video, you can just pause. So the word Sheraton gets broken into the word Sheraton. And because she, in this tokenization, is a beginning of sentence token, it's the same token that the word she gets tokenized into. So the word Sheraton is imparting all of the information about the word she into this sort of paragraph. And those 2 things, because I used explainable AI to say why it was happening, are why you get the gender woman. And that doesn't happen if you actually know the word Sheraton and you're not using a tokenizer. There's also some other issues with tokenizers. They're regularly reused. Just because you have a new state-of-the-art AI with slightly different, instructions and slightly different training data and more parameters doesn't mean they recomputed the vocabulary. You could be using an old vocabulary. And what if you go from a tokenizer trained on the web and use it in physics, chemistry, or biology, or even train it on textbooks? There's a lot of important words that may not show up very often, but should have their own meaning, but they're represented by multiple tokens. And basically everyone I know who tries to do stuff in physics or chemistry or medicine has a problem with the tokenizer. It's always causing problems because it doesn't know the important words. And yes, a human could change the vocabulary and maybe retrain the AI so it learns these new words. But again, you've been told that these LLMs are going to take over the world or create a utopia or whatever, and they can't even, they don't even know about metacarbonic acid or something. I'm not a chemist, I just made that up. Yeah, why can't they update their vocabulary? Let's talk about another problem. It's called expressiveness. So researchers have been looking into stuff like this, and it turns out as AI usage goes up in a place, the sort of diversity of and complexity of the language that people are using goes down. So that means that if you're using an AI to speak for you without rephrasing it in your own words, you're going to sound like everybody else. If you're trying to stand out in a crowd, make yourself look good, it's not going to work. However, I understand that some people are more worried about standing out in a bad way. And yeah, it does solve that problem. You're going to sound like everybody else using AI. So there's also this other problem is that when AIs are aligned, which sort of just means alignment is sort of the process that makes an AI not show you terrible things or tell you how to build a bomb. As you align AI so that they don't do dangerous stuff like that, they also lose expressiveness or diversity in language. And this makes sense. This is sort of related to a known problem called model collapse. And I don't believe these are the best references for model collapse, but search engines have gotten really bad recently. So these are the only ones I could find, but I'm pretty sure it's a known problem that's older than this. If you train an AI on the outputs of another AI, there is a loss of expressiveness. So if you went from, the AI we started with before that had finished training, and then you trained the next generation of AI on the output of that AI, and then the next generation, and then the next generation, you lose the ability to express the patterns that are in the original input. And so I sort of liken this to if you keep training AIs on the output of other AIs, eventually you'll get a video game NPC that only has 3 or 4 things it can say and just rotates through those. This is also a problem that we're experiencing right now because there are bad actors filling the internet, books, and news articles with AI slop. So if we keep training on the raw internet, this problem's sort of inevitably gonna cause problems. That's not a good sentence. How do we fix this? Human effort. You get humans to filter and like rate or create this new data, and then we can keep training our AIs. But again, you've been told these AIs are near AGI. And maybe you've even heard about the future utopia where trillions of artificial humans will be created and we'll love them very much. But like, as those artificial humans learn from each other, their expressiveness goes down. So they actually get worse at saying things. Or if it's an AGI that's self-learning from itself, like it learns, I don't know, how to take our lives and take over our society based on its own output, it turns into this, like, stop humans, obey me. Like, that's all it could say. That's not very scary. And this is sort of what I call a chicken and egg of AGI. If you want this to happen without a bunch of human effort, we don't know how to do that, really. So we need something that's already AGI to tell us how to solve it, but then we'd already have AGI. So how do we get AGI without AGI? And maybe humans will figure out how to solve this in a really good way that doesn't just require a lot of effort, but we'll see. Anyways, so these next two are they're not really limitations from a technical point of view. They're actually really neat, I think. I use these things in my research. They're kind of neat, kind of cool for explainable AI. But they are, again, limitations for this future utopia of people. Like, they say you can upload your brain to the internet because these AIs are so good at, they're like a brain. Yeah, you figure out why that isn't good in a second. So you can just erase any concrete concept from a generative AI, or just any of these text-based AIs, but generative AIs in particular. So if we had an AI that knows about cats, you can sort of hypnotize it using just more math, actually. It's not magic. And then the AI can't really know about cats. When it's generating text, it won't really generate information about cats. If the right answer to a question was cats, it would get the answer wrong. Basically, the AI can't make any decisions using information about cats versus non-cats. There's also a similar technique called concept steering. So this is more, you can steer the generative AI to certain styles or behaviors. Hey, output this text like you were Shakespeare. Hey, refuse to answer this question. Hey, never refuse to answer this question. And it's pretty similar. Like if you have an AI that can talk about cats and dogs, you sort of do a different kind of not magical hypnosis, just a bunch of math actually. And then the AI would only generate things about dogs. Okay, so these are the AIs that they're saying are going to be the template for these. We're just so close. They're not going to be much different. We're really close to this AI utopia. Trust us. I don't believe this. Okay, but then I can just erase the concept of freedom from your brain? Or I can just like steer you to subservience? Like, I know we do that already with propaganda, but this is sort of just like math. We could just do math to do it. Well, okay, just math? No. We would need a bunch of humans to create a bunch of training data to actually erase these things, because like I said, concrete concepts, that means there's essentially training data to train these erasers. So a bunch of humans have to do this too, because there's so much human effort in things. So I'm going to talk about another chicken and egg of AGI, extreme energy costs. So like, if you're thinking about image generators, even one generation is quite costly. And if you use 100 prompts to generate the best picture, even more, there's going to be a lot of Dr. Sasha Lucioni in this. I'm going to say that. She does a lot of work on here, and I do have my favorite researchers. And like, this is not a thing that's like just researchers saying this. Even the tech people are saying this. Though they're sort of saying, hey, give us nuclear power. Hey, let us use your power grid. Hey, give us your water. Hey, let us open these data centers. And sort of the reason why they're saying that is because it helps them consolidate power over both people and other companies. And whether AI keeps going or not, the fact that they have these data centers means they keep that power. It's not great. Let's start with a positive. Can AI be used for environmental good? Yeah, of course, definitely. Amazing. It's great. I'm citing a paper here that says forecasting energy usage. So, hey, Do we have enough renewable energy to meet demands for today? If not, what is the minimum amount of non-renewable energy we can produce to meet demands? Great, right? You minimize the amount of non-renewable energy that is used. Or, hey, can we make a more efficient battery? Can we make a more efficient circuit? AI can be used for these things as well. And if you look at this video with Dr. Sasha Lucioni in it, she's actually going over this paper here. And there's like a big table in the paper that actually says like all of these things can be done with AI to help the environment. Some other things are tracking deforestation and biodiversity. Hey, are the trees there? Hey, like, are we seeing the correct percentage of animals? Can we detect emissions? If a company says their factory's generating 100 tons of CO2 a year, can we detect if it's actually generating 200 tons and hold them accountable? Monitoring corals. Corals are super important. Maybe go see the octopus lady for that. I'll plug her here. The important part here is basically none of these suggestions use LLMs. And why is that? So let's talk about Spam Detector GPT. And if you don't know what that is, it was in the first part video, so go watch that maybe. If it wants to detect if an email is spam or not, it processes the input once and takes the output and compares it to the label vocabulary to see if it's spam or not. Okay, that's pretty efficient, and it's probably as efficient as you're going to get. Something has to process all the words once, at least. So if you wanted to use a language model to solve the problem, you've got some issues. You have to first generate an instruction prompt. So you have to maybe use a persona. You're an email filtering expert. You will be and then you have to give it the instruction. You will be provided with the text of the email after 3 quotation marks. You should have to say how the AI should use that input. Maybe tell it to use chain of thought reasoning when it's generating its answer, and then here's the input. So already your input is larger, right? You've got all this extra boilerplate stuff that lets the AI work. And why do these instructions work for the LLM if it was trained on web data? Because a bunch of humans looked at a bunch of instructions and the outputs of those instructions and rated them good or bad. Because the AI is not trained on instruction modeling or modeling the instruction language. It is trained on modeling the corpus language first. And in order to do instructions, you have to train it on a bunch of human filtered data. Humans. Yes. Okay. It looks like you're trying to find out if this email is spam or not. My plan of action is the chain of thought nonsense. Executing my plan, blah, blah, blah. You have to process the input at least once per output token. And if you remember the ChatGPT car we showed before in part 1, that tiny LLM generates more than one sentence. So for each sentence, you might be processing the input 100 times, and you might be generating 100 sentences. You have to process that input that is larger than just the email, maybe like 10,000 times. And even then, maybe the AI hallucinates, and then you have to do it again. Because remember, the creativity is just random, and it's just doing like the modeling of the language. You have to not only give it bigger input, you have to process that input multiple times. So LLMs are just super inefficient at like detecting spam when you could just do an AI that processes the input once. This is a table of the electricity usage of an LLM after it's done training. And they sort of, not just the electricity, but the sort of where is all this sort of cost to the environment coming from? And some of it is equipment manufacturing. We sort of glossed over that, but these AIs have to run on some hardware, usually a bunch of GPUs. They do have infrastructure overhead. That means these have to be hosted on the cloud somewhere because you're probably not downloading. Or if you're downloading, then, the place where it has to be downloaded from has to exist. And then it's mostly electricity. And that's people using these AIs. And that's if you're trying to solve a problem with an AI that is an LLM, it generates a lot of electricity. So maybe don't. It is what I like to call the wrong tool for the job. Just because every problem can technically be represented with words, and every solution to that problem can technically be represented by words, doesn't mean something that generates words is the best thing to solve that problem, even if you think it'll be AGI eventually or something like that. And it's not just electricity, it's water. Data centers need to be cooled. And, they keep talking about give us nuclear power, trust us, we'll be responsible with it, despite the fact that we're evil a lot of the time, or we don't promise not to be evil anymore. Okay. Actually, researchers say that still won't work because there's various reasons. The in-context learning cannot solve these problems. I'm not going to that today. And also, like, if one of these data centers opens up near you, it can affect your electricity. And you might not notice that, but, you know, they usually open up these data centers, like, near places usually occupied by marginalized people. They also steal water from places that have droughts. It's terrible. Anyways, DeepSeek happened. Hey! So, why did people keep doing this? Well, the tech people insisted that scaling bigger was the only way to do it. We need to make it bigger, more parameters, more data trained on, more GPUs. It's the only way forward. Definitely we're not using it to consolidate power. And definitely we're not using it to prop up, you know, chip manufacturers or steal money from Elon Musk, quite literally. But then DeepSeek happened. And they created an AI that used 1/50th of the resources and yet still beat the huge OpenAI models on several benchmarks. We're not going to get into benchmarks here, but benchmarks are a scam. No one that reports benchmarks from a company proves that they didn't cheat. So they're just a scam. Don't listen to them. But why did this happen? Well, America was like, we don't want China to have AI. Everybody who's making GPUs to train AIs on, don't sell them to China. And I guess they expected China to sort of just roll over and be like, you defeated us. We'll never get AI. No. Restrictions breed creativity. The researchers were like, okay, we'll do it with a toaster then. Screw you. Pardon my language. And so they did. And it was great because, like, they showed that the paradigm of we must be bigger must always happen was false and almost, like, certainly a scam that I described earlier. And hopefully, like, researchers see that now. Sadly, corporate interests affect research a lot in AI. This is true of a lot of different fields. And it's not great. The reviewers watch the news, so they talk about the things they know, which are the things they see in the news. And corporations have money, and researchers need to eat. So I understand why it happens, but I don't think it's great. Also, NVIDIA lost a lot of money on this, and I think that's probably great, because it was all propped up on lies. Like, okay, you built your market cap share, I'm not a market person, market value on lies. Yeah, okay, when someone calls you on the lie and proves you were lying, you're gonna lose money. Don't lie, just do actual research. And then, like, there's some good things we can do about this. Like, this has actually been implemented now by Dr. Sasha Lucioni and a bunch of other people at Hugging Face. Like, Energy Star ratings for AIs. Tell people how much energy these AIs are going to be burning before they use them. So maybe they can choose responsible, correct tools for a job instead of an LLM to try to do everything. Or maybe just don't use the AI. I don't use AIs except in research. Ever. Never do I do that. And, like, anecdotally, I've been getting a lot more opportunities recently, and I kind of think it might be because I'm standing out from the people that are just generating AI grant proposals. But what do I know? Maybe I'm just amazing. Let's go back to the human effort, because I've brought this up a lot. None of these AIs exist without a vast amount of human effort. Someone asked me to estimate it recently, how much human effort is actually, like, making these AIs work as a percentage. I said 50%. And I'm pretty sure I was lowballing it. It's huge. Like, without this human effort, nothing works. Nothing here works. But you don't really hear about it. And why don't you hear about it? Well, these data labelers are usually underpaid, marginalized people from countries that Canada and America are super racist about. So of course you don't hear about them, especially when they're suffering. They're the data labelers, and they have an association. You can go to it right here, where they talk about, like, how things are, what they're doing to try to fix that. And in fact, they just recently, as of the release of this video, had sort of a conference online on the DARE Institute's Twitch channel. You can go there. I'm also going to use this time to plug the DARE Institute's Twitch channel, because I think it's like weekly or bi-weekly. Dr. Emily Bender and Dr. Alex Hanna have a thing called Mystery AI Hype Theater 3000, where they deconstruct all the nonsense AI hype you see in the media. And if you really want like a practical deconstruction of the AI hype that's better than what I can do, go see them. Anyways, back to the human effort. I'm just going to sort of summarize some of the things that were in this video or in this stream. So they have exploitative work conditions. So they can have their work taken and like accepted after they've done it and just not be paid. They can have to do unpaid training to get a job, like a month of unpaid training, and then the job just won't exist afterwards, or they won't get it. A job can be listed for several months of work and then it'll only be a month, or like accounts can be closed without warning. So you're just out of a job forever for no reason. Usually some BS where you broke our terms of service, but they don't ever say why and they ignore your emails. They have job insecurity and a lack of contracts. So there's no consistent job offers or contracts. They don't know when their next paycheck is happening. And this actually, I think, happened in the chat. One person described how their data labeling company turned into an MLM, where instead of getting paid to label data, they were paid to recruit more data labelers to recruit more data labelers. So, not great. Unfair working conditions and content moderation trauma. So they're overworked and they're essentially forced to view harmful content. If you ever wonder why the image generation AI doesn't show you something horribly graphic, or why the text AI doesn't output text that describes terrible things, it's because a human had to see the AI generate those terrible things and rate it no. Because if you don't do that, the AI is going to model the data it was trained on, and some of the data on the internet describes horrible things. So you have to change the language it's modeling, and in order to do that, someone has to look at the horrible things. And this is true of basically all content moderation, but like these people specifically, they of course don't get healthcare provided, but they want to hire an AI welfare like psychologist for the AI that takes words, turns them into numbers, and does math on them to generate a token. And then after the car generates a sentence, a human read it and said, if a human said this to me, I'd be worried about them, so we should worry about the AI, because they're definitely close to AGI, even though they can't change their instructions or learn new words or do anything without a bunch of human data labelers. But screw the data labelers, we need to hire a therapist for our AI. This pause is intentional. Let's just shake my head no. No. Anyways, and they also have a lack of social protections and benefits. They don't have healthcare, no pensions, no unions. And basically, if they try to make a union, their account just gets closed. It's terrible. It's bad. And these people are the backbone of what makes AI work at all. Because remember, model collapse happens, and, there's also an amplification of bias I didn't get into. Anyways. So besides the impact on the data labelers that make everything work, let's talk about how AIs are affecting you and me today. And I'm talking about today because I don't think worrying about trillions of potential future humans and ignoring what's happening to the current humans is good. But some people do, and I don't think you should listen to them. Anyways, so here's a thing where Meta added an AI chatbot without asking to a mushroom foraging group. And the AI chatbot just told a bunch of people how to kill themselves because it gave them recipes with just deadly mushrooms in it. I'm going to stare at you, and I've said this before. Someone has died from AI. This is a statement I am confident I can make. People die from bad medical advice all the time. There's no reason to think that someone hasn't died from some BS medical advice that a chatbot gave it. Like, who's checking their chat logs with ChatGPT if they did something that killed them? They'll call it a horrible accident. But, almost certainly, someone has died from AI because it's not being used responsibly. And if I don't want to give you the wrong impression here with this talk, I am pro-AI, but I'm pro-AI being used responsibly and using the right tool for the job. Don't kill people with bullshit like this. Anyways. Also, we know AIs are super biased, so they found here that the AI that was sort of, I think, looking at employment recommendations preferred names that sounded white and women. Or we know that if you use sort of a dialect of English commonly associated with marginalized people, the AI will think terrible or predict terrible things about you. It doesn't think, sorry. Also, we know that, hey, if your English is a second language or something like that, not even just a different dialect, maybe a different grammar because you're sort of adopting the grammar from your first language, the AI will also prefer like people over you. So really, we know these AIs are biased. We know they, in fact, amplify bias. If there's racism in 30% of the training data, the AI will be racist something like 50% of the time. It amplifies bias. So we really shouldn't use them for, oh, no. We're using them to detect welfare fraud, and it's being biased about people's age, disability, and marital status. Remember, welfare fraud's usually less than 1%. It's ridiculous to spend money on this. Or, they used facial recognition on like a 10-pixel video to detect a person who did a crime because the cops think it's TV and the AI can just figure it out. And then they forced the witness to finger this guy, even though the witness said he had no idea who did it. Anyways, so this guy had to spend 17 months in prison because of misuse of AI and also forcing a witness to do terrible things. This is not really new. AI has been used a lot in carceral justice. It really shouldn't be. It's not really a responsible use of it. And United Health, this article is from 2023, used an AI model with 90% error rate to deny care. And this company here is getting an AI to pretend to be a disabled person to tell people the impacts that unaccessibility will have on people. Again, it's pretending to be a disabled person. AI is not a disabled person. Listen to actual disabled people, don't dehumanize them. It would be terrible if someone were doing this and dehumanizing people, especially if it didn't work. Especially if researchers have shown that using AIs to generate text pretending to be a representative sample of people doesn't work. So even if it did work, it would be terrible because it would be dehumanizing, but it doesn't work in the first place. Just listen to humans. Oh my God. Anyways, so why does all this happen? Well, this is a very famous slide, allegedly from IBM. I don't actually know if this is true, but this is what people say it's from. A computer can never be held accountable. Therefore, a computer must never make a decision. But really, what they heard was, hey, computer makes decision, no accountability, money. And this is on purpose. So if you don't think it's on purpose, this is what OpenAI's mission is for AGI. AGI, for OpenAI, meant something that removes every paid creative job. Anyone that's creative and gets paid to be creative, out of work. This is what they meant by AGI. That's not what everybody means by AGI, but this is OpenAI, the people who make ChatGPT. And also, all creatives that get paid to work being put out of work is literally, it says, a benefit to all of humanity. It's on purpose. They're doing this on purpose because they want to avoid accountability. And that's why things like the military use AI. So that when they target a house, they can just say, the AI told us to, and they can just bomb indiscriminately, usually marginalized people. It's not great. It's not great. It shouldn't happen. This is the kind of stuff I am against. Use AI responsibly. Oh my God. Anyways, I talked about this before, but AI is the wrong tool for the problem most of the time. Especially since we saw before, large language models are not a search engine. They are not a search engine. They model the language of their training data. However, like when we're talking about the car, you can staple a search engine to the car. You can do that. And if you want to see a really bad example of that, just look at all the summaries by Google in their chat. It'll just like regurgitate nonsense that people just put on the internet that's fake. It'll tell you things that like a dog is played in the NBA or that glue is good. You've probably seen millions of these. It happens a lot, right? And that's because they just indiscriminately stapled a search engine to an AI. So why do they do this? It has a couple of reasons. So one is it makes it seem like the LLM is doing something. So one of the problems with these people who sell LLMs is that it's hard to find things for them to do. because like they're the wrong tool for the job most of the time. So they have to invent things for them to do to justify their expense. So that's one of the reasons they do stuff like this. Another reason is you'll notice that even though I said they stapled a search engine to the AI has not shown you any of its sources. The AI is hiding its sources, meaning the person that has told the AI to do this is plagiarizing. This is plagiarizing. You are stealing someone else's words and presenting them as your own. I'm not saying the AI is doing that. I'm saying the people who deployed the AI are. This has the effect of making the AI seem like the authority on the subject instead of the people it's plagiarizing, right? So it makes the AIs, and this happens a lot. Like I hear a lot of stories about like, oh no, I asked ChatGPT, so it must be true. Like someone got accused of hacking in a speed run because somebody had a 20-hour conversation with ChatGPT about waveforms. And I died. I'm sorry I can't link it. I don't know where it is. But I died when I saw that because it was just like, that's not what ChatGPT does. It's not the authority on any of this. And then the actual authorities, when they saw what this conversation was happening, they were like, no, this is silly. It's run on actual hardware. It's terrible. I'm sorry I ranted there for a bit. And another problem I think of is that, again, I've mentioned this before, there's limiting of research. So this is Dr. Emily Bender talking about who cares whether a text manipulation system that generates tokens one at a time, when prompted with a theory of mind question, outputs tokens one at a time, that a human looks at and says, oh, if another human said this, I think they'd have a theory of mind. Like, what does that matter? When, like, you know, people are being bombed because of AIs and people are being, you know, arrested because of AIs and people are like losing electricity and water because, like, who cares about that right now? Maybe we should talk about the effect it has on research, where like we have to follow the paradigm of bigger is better, and the research should focus on shoving more parameters into your AI in the same GPU. You know, I don't know. It's I think the research could be well, but we need to sort of divest maybe. So, I don't know. I think I love research, obviously. It's a thing I do. But maybe we should think about the research we're doing and why we're doing it and whether we're being unduly influenced by corporate interests or something like that. But you gotta eat. This one was a bit different than the first one. Hopefully it was okay. There's actually going to be a second video that comes out that's going to be completely different than these two. It's actually going to be practical applications. So you now know that AIs are not scary, but AIs being used improperly are scary, and there's a lot of human effort behind AIs. But, you know, maybe you said, hey, I want to do something with AIs. And that's what the next set of videos is going to be. It's probably only going to be one video or two videos. But actually, like, some practical things you can do to do AIs. And you won't need specific hardware for this initially. It'll be great. Join me then. It'll be great. And I'm supposed to show you these because I actually used all these icons from Icon 8. It's great. Bye, everybody. Join me for the next set of videos that are going to be nothing like this.